Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Shelf Life. This is Simran, your best friend, and this is my podcast, Shelf Life, where we talk about books, their philosophies, but most importantly, our personal relationship with a book. And we are in week 4 of video, and my self esteem is at week 0. um, I'm saying that because I don't really like being in front of the camera too much. Never been a huge fan of that. I don't mind it because I think if you if you know me well enough, you would know that I do tend to do a lot of activities that demand me to be front of the camera. So I have done all of that, but I don't like it. I don't really like when the lens is so clearly on me and just me, which is why I like doing guest episodes because there's someone else there too, and it's not all on me. So yeah, but that's just something. I really like this format. I really like that we have video and audio now, even though it's a lot of work. And because of that work, there's a lot of you know uh, tension, and there's a lot of worrying and planning and plotting that goes into it. But I don't mind that. I don't mind the planning and plotting part of it because I genuinely am a geek for planning and plotting. I actually enjoy making schedules. I enjoy sitting down and planning my whole week. I love that. But the thing is, when you're doing something like this podcast and when you're a student in college, it just so happens that you just get bombarded with sudden announcements, with sudden developments, and most of the times I know how to deal with it, but sometimes I don't. And speaking of that, what happened for the past 2 weeks, I've had a pretty bit busy 2 weeks now, and that is because of um, a lot of the assignments that just hit me like a bus. Did not see that coming. I was doing a lot of other stuff as well, a lot of cool stuff that I'll link in the description. I wrote a couple of articles for different websites, and I will link all of that in the description. You can check it out if you want. Uh, and besides that, I think we were planning to do this video thing, which takes a lot of time and a lot of planning, and there's a lot of stuff that we didn't know how to do, but we were trying to figure it all out. And of course, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that went wrong. There's a lot of things that went right, obviously, but that's part of the game, and you accept it. But the reason why I had a really hectic 2 weeks is because of that, because I really just didn't have any time to do anything that I actually that actually takes my mind off of just the cruelty of the world. Yeah, I didn't really get too much time to just relax. And that for me is very important. And what happens is when you're so busy with work and just the activities that you do, what can happen is that you tend to isolate yourself. I mean, that is what I do. I have a pattern with that. Whenever I'm bombarded with things, whenever I have a lot on my plate, whenever that happens, and if at all I'm not getting that time to rejuvenate, or getting that time to just take a break and do something that really makes me feel at ease, when I don't have that time, and that time it need not be like a entire day of just doing nothing. It can just be like an hour or two, but where I'm completely not stressed. But when I don't have that time, what happens is that have a tendency to get really low, and I can get cranky. I get angry at nothing, and I just become the worst version of myself. And that's what started happening. Like I just I was cranky, I was irritable, I would yell, I would, make faces. Even like besides that, that's not even the worst part. The worst part was that I was isolating myself. I would spend all day holed up in my room, and that's not healthy for anybody. And you might have guessed from the title of the video that today we are going to be talking about mental health. And we're going to be discussing a book that has the theme of mental health. And the reason I've started with this story is because when I was, you know, going through this stuff, like over the 2 weeks, when I was just in that mind space, um, some of the things that bother me that I know are, triggers, I would say, to a path that I wouldn't want to go down, is isolationism. So when I start isolating myself, when I realize that I'm isolating myself, I know that something is off. I know that this is the time to take a seat. Wow, take a step back and reevaluate things. So for me, one of my triggers, and again, this is not something I've come to on my own. Like I've been in and out of therapy since I was 15. And yeah, I think everything that I've been able to achieve, be it good or bad, everything that I am today, a lot of it I credit to going to therapy and doing my research about mental health and my mind and how to keep me sane. And I never shy away from saying that. Like I have no qualms in admitting that I have sought help more than once, and it it made me better. Like there's no doubt about that. So yeah, but anyway, going back to the point, this is something that isolation was a trigger for me, is something I've come to while working with my therapist, and just even besides that, just doing a lot of thinking and evaluating and analyzing, reflecting is the word, on my own. And I love that space. I love the that I have the um, energy and the mindset to do that self reflection. I've not always had it, but now that I do, I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, and that's the thing. And the reason why it's a trigger for me is because one of my biggest fears in life, and this has been this way since I can remember. One of my biggest fears in life is to be alone, A, and B, be alone while I am sad. So, what I mean by the second part of that sentence is that when I have to deal with my issues alone, um, that scares me. Dealing with it on my own, all alone. Um, and, this is considering it's not a choice. If it is a choice, then that's a different deal for me. But, like, when it's not a choice, and when I'm alone, when I'm sad, or I'm anxious, or I'm stressed, that scares me. Because, there's a lot of other reasons for that. But that's one of the biggest fears that I've had throughout my life, and I have it now. I have it. I'll probably have it tomorrow. And I know that a lot of you might also have that fear because it's not that unique. It's not like I'm some special snowflake. It's quite common, and the reason why I started with all of that, with that little anecdote, is because a woman who didn't have that fear, a woman who strayed as far away from that zone as possible, who had no qualms about staying alone, about being alone, being sad alone, in fact, who had been sad alone for most of her life, was Eleanor Oliphant. Now, Eleanor Oliphant is a fictional character from the book that we're going to be talking about today. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. But the thing is, we all know an Eleanor. we all know a woman who is just a little bit of an oddball. She'll sit at the end of the class. She will sit in a corner in an office. She will walk past parks and frown at the people inside. Eleanor is a woman who will go to the grocery store at 11 in the night and pick up everything in her sight. And it just so happens that everything in her sight is usually alcohol and unhealthy food, unhealthy junk. Eleanor Oliphant is a woman of a few words. And she lives in her own world. She lives alone. She is surrounded constantly and consumed by books. She lives in her own fairyland. But the thing is, her fairyland doesn't really have fairies or a happy ending or any kind of fantasy. She lives in that land just because it is easier to live there than it is to live here. It is easier to live anywhere other than here. And this is a woman who is extremely funny. She is so funny that you might actually wonder why she's not, the clown of the class, and why she's not loved by just about everyone, even the rival gangs. You'll wonder why she doesn't, mingle a lot in the cafeteria of her office. You'll wonder why she sits alone and eats alone and goes back home and doesn't party on the weekends. But she is herself, and she is someone that nobody can decipher. She is someone that nobody can comprehend. And I know that on the podcast we've talked a lot about mysterious women. We've talked a lot about women who we can't understand, who are kept warm by their loneliness. But Eleanor Oliphant is someone that we might actually have been at some point in our lives. But, she is a woman who was alone by choice, and the reasons behind that choice are complicated. The reasons behind that decision to be alone, to stay alone, to live her life alone is a little bit complicated. And throughout the book, that's what we explore. We go through layers of her personality while also understanding why she is the way that she is. I mean, we learn to love each and every side of her. We learn to love her quirks, her idiosyncrasies. We learn to love the fact that she downs cold pizza like like you would down some sort of, I don't know, what do people like to eat? You see, this is why I don't like doing video, because sometimes I get so like lost in my thoughts that usually when I have to get back to ground, I make like really weird faces that I would prefer if they were not on the internet. But yeah, anyway, she downs cold pizza on the weekends. She has a schedule that she has inscribed on her soul, on her skin, and yeah, she sticks by the rules because honestly, she doesn't care enough to flout them. And all of this changes when, after 29 years of complete isolation, she chances upon a lot of people who attempt to, who don't necessarily attempt to change her. I don't think that's their intention. But who do things to her and who do things around her that, forces her to consider that maybe there is a world out there that is worth getting to know. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, about why so many people spend so much time in isolation, and a lot of us enjoy it. a lot of us like the fact that we are alone. A lot of us like the fact that we don't have to care enough to pretend. This is one of the things that Eleanor says in the book. The reason why she's alone, the reason why she chooses to be alone, is because she believes that all the people in society, to exist in society, to make friends, to socialize, to be a social animal, you have to have some degree of pretense. You can't not survive without it. Wait, did I say that right? You can't survive. You can't not survive without it. That's gonna take a while for me to understand. Anyway, you got the point. What I'm trying to say is that um, Eleanor justifies her existence by saying that she would rather be completely herself and avoid change, and avoid putting on a mask to meet other people. And that's why she doesn't want to do that, because she does not want to compromise on who she is. But does she really like herself that much? That is something that we all, I think we all deal with. That's a question that we continuously ask ourselves. Of course, not aloud, because I don't think any of us are confident enough or kind enough to ourselves to ask that question aloud. But we all have that question. Do we like ourselves enough to not change at all? I mean, what is change anyway? We change because we want to be part of the world. We change because change is normal. We all should change. If we don't change, we'd all be the same people we were when we were 10 or 15. I'm saying that considering a lot of our viewers are much older than that. I have no, actually, I would have a problem if I had to be the same person I was at 15, because I was quite, quite stupid. um, I'm not saying that I'm not stupid now, but that was a different type of stupid that I would not want to go back to. Yeah, so that's a question that Gail Honeyman is trying to ask us. Do we like ourselves enough to remain the way that we are, to remain untouched by the world, to remain untouched by people and their kindness and their cruelties and their and the various things that they do? Do we like ourselves enough? Do we trust ourselves enough to stay the way that we are? And do we believe that who we are right now is the absolute best that we can ever be, that we ever could be? And, when I think about things like these, they do tend to scare me a bit. I do constantly think about whether I am the best version of myself that I can be. And whenever I feel that I'm not, it hurts. Whenever I feel like I'm not good enough, or that I'm not doing enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not working hard enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or whatever it is that we like to tell ourselves, that we tend to tell ourselves. When I think of all of these things, I think of a lot of pain. I think I take it as fact sometimes. And when you do that to yourself, when you tell yourself all of these things, when you tell yourselves all of the reasons why you do not deserve to change, why you do not deserve to move ahead, to like yourself, to be kind to yourself, when you tell yourselves all the reasons, why you should not be happy, I think it does something to your soul. And that's the reason why so many of us struggle with getting through the day. So many of us struggle with getting through periods where there aren't that many distractions. You see, when I'm alone, what I tend to do is I distract myself. I distract myself with books. I distract myself with um, TV, with in the internet, with podcasts. And that's what Eleanor does too, to an extent. When she's alone, she distracts herself with books, with podcasts, with um, talking to her mom, with a lot of other things. But the thing is, when that distraction is taken away from us, when something like a massive global lockdown comes into the picture, how do we go from there? How do we make peace with our isolation? And a lot of us fail to do that. A lot of us fail to make our peace with our aloneness. And when that happens, a lot of tragic things can happen. A lot of people tend to give up. A lot of people tend to feel like they would do anything but be where they are. Even if a fairyland has nothing to do with fairies, it's still better than being here, right? So a lot of people tend to give up. A lot of people tend to let go. A lot of people tend to just leave, switch off, and end. A lot of people try to end their stories. And that is tragic because our stories are not meant to end. No story is meant to end. In fact, when Eleanor Oliphant, even though I know what happens in the end, I'm not going to tell you, I know what happens at the end of the book. I still wanted to know how she would go on about her life. I still wanted to know what kind of person she would be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And even though I know that because Eleanor had a lot of issues, she had a lot of things that she needed to address, she had a lot of things that she needed to reflect on, even though there was going to be a lot of hurdles in her path, like there is in all of our paths. I still wanted to know where she would go. In fact, that's what it is, right? That's our obsession with death. That's why so many of us fear death. I was talking to a friend about this once. Why do we fear death? Why do we believe in religion? Why do we believe in supernatural? Why do we believe in all of these things? Because they take us farther away from death, from the fear of death. Why do we read books? Because they take us farther away from the fear of death. Because death is the ultimate end, right? I mean, that's what we think of it as. Death is the end to everything. It's supposed to be the end to our stories, but the truth is, what if it's not? And I know I'm just, spitballing here, but there's so many things that we think of as the end that are not really the end. A diagnosis can be one of them. You could be diagnosed with anything under the sun. I mean, I would give my explanation, my my example. When I was diagnosed with depression, I thought it was the end of my life. I thought, oh, I would never be able to do anything again. I would never be able to be happy again. This is such a tragic thing in my life, and I would never be able to accomplish anything. A lot of people have that attitude when they're diagnosed with, say, any of the physical ailments, But that's not it. It's not the end of the world. It's not, you are not your diagnosis. You are not just one part of your life. You are not just one thing. I take great comfort in knowing that human beings are never just one thing. Human beings are so many things. In fact, one of the most beautiful things about life is that, about people and about life, about being in the world, is that you get to witness other people's growth. You get to witness them change. And I think it's so beautiful to know that someone you knew when you were 15 has become someone completely else when they were 35. Isn't that strange and wonderful at the same time? Isn't that so promising that everything that you're worried about today, everything that bothers you today, everything that you're isolating yourself um, because of, you're going to be someone completely different when you're 40. You know, that considering you accept the fact that life must be inclusive of change. Considering you accept the fact that change is necessary. And I feel like the reason why Eleanor Oliphant had so much problem with being, just fine. In fact, the reason why I feel like Eleanor Oliphant had absolutely no qualms about being just fine, was because she thought that that was all she could be. Because she thought that that was all that was asked of her, that she just didn't need to change. But you do. You can be more than just fine. You can be more than just okay. You deserve to be more. Eleanor deserved to be more than just fine. And that's what you realize, when you go through the discomfort of the process, when you go through the pain of the process, when you go through the sleeplessness and the resistance, when you go through the resistance, you see the beauty on the other side. You see why you had to go through it. You see what you've become. And that is glorious. And I remember, I just want to, I would like to say a little bit of a quote here. I would like to insert a quote here. It's actually a biblical quote. It's from 1 Corinthians, I think. It says, "We shall not sleep, but we shall all be changed." And I take that quote really, to heart, and I have it on my board and everything. It's because I think, for me, what it symbolizes is that it is hard to try to change. It is hard to try to become someone that you really want to become. It's hard to go through things. It's hard to have anxiety. It is hard to have depression. It is hard to have a stressful week or a stressful month or a stressful year. It is hard to go through life. It is hard to strive to do something, whatever it may be. Maybe it is, for you, maybe it is just getting up in the morning and taking a bath. Maybe today that is what you're striving at, and that is really, really difficult to do. Trust me, I've been there. I know how difficult that is to do. Maybe what you're striving at is having a family, having a good relationship with whoever you're with, having a family, having a life, building a life, creating a life. Maybe that is what you're striving at. Maybe what you're striving at is having a career, or not having a career, renouncing the world, turning to spirituality. Who knows, man? People are really, really interesting. You can have so many different things that you strive at. And or maybe it is like Eleanor, what she strove at, from what I understood through the book, was having a life where she could truly like herself. She could truly like the choices she's made. She could like the fact that she was alone. And really like it. Not just like it in the sense that this is all I've known, so I'm okay with it. I'm completely fine with it. But like it in the sense that you really, really like it. You're patient with yourself. You're not afraid to change. And that's the thing, when you're striving at something, whatever it is that you might be striving at, you realize that where you are right now is a lot different from where you want to go, which is essentially why you're striving, right? Today, if I'm here trying to get out of bed, if I have to take the first example, and when you're someone who has probably had a lot of phases where you've been depressed, or you've had a lot of low periods in your life, and that's completely normal too. It's completely normal. Depression is a normal part of life, in the sense that everybody at some point goes through that phase, goes through that depression. And of course, because human beings are so beautifully made and so uniquely made, our responses to that depression, to that low phase, is very, very different. We all react differently to it. We all react differently to something like depression. The intensity is different, the response is different, and that's where, therapy comes into place. That's where medication at some point can come into place. Because we react differently, because we are special, we are unique. I can't believe I'm gonna say it. You are a special snowflake. um, yeah. And when you're striving at something, if I'm striving to get to that shower, I know that right now I am in the bed under my covers, unable to face the sun, because I don't like how it feels on my skin. I know I am here and I know where I want to go. But there's a lot between that. There is so much that I will have to change if I have to get to that shower. I will have to change my view. I will have to change the fact that my view right now is just the covers. It's just this dark facade. I will have to change that. I will have to move my limbs. I will have to put my feet on the ground. And that's a lot. There's a lot that needs to be changed. And that change is painful. That change is terrifying. But when you do that, when you get through it, when you get through the change, something out there is waiting for you. Maybe not waiting in your shower, because that would be strange. Someone waiting for you in the shower. Maybe not that. But maybe a revelation is waiting for you in the shower. Who knows? Maybe some sort of holy water will drip down from the shower and cleanse you of your evil, cleanse you of your anxiety and your depression. I'm just kidding, okay? But yeah, what I mean is, you never know how life surprises you, right? You never know what's gonna come. You never know how you're gonna end up tomorrow, where you're gonna end up tomorrow. So you might as well take the chance and live it. You might as well get to the shower. Get off that bed. You might as well take that shower. Who knows? Someone might call you for a glass of wine sometime. They might call you for a walk. And you might actually like that walk. You might like the person you're walking with. Who knows? And yeah, that's why. We shall not sleep, but we shall all be changed. And for Eleanor, that does come true. She does change. She finds a support system. She finds herself. She finds the courage to change, even though it takes a lot. One of the quotes in the book is, it goes, "The only way to survive is to open your heart." I opened my heart up, and then I closed it back again. And then I opened it back up, and then I closed it back again. And with me, that's happened on and off for a while. I know that it happens on and off for a lot of people, because that's how we are as human beings. We're fallible. Did I say fallible? Fallible. We're fallible. We make mistakes. We do stupid things. You're still gonna be stupid at 35. um, but it's okay. It's worth the. It's worth the mistake. You still get to live, and living is better than anything else. Life is precious, and you wouldn't know that unless you live it. You wouldn't know how beautiful things are, how disgusting things are, how painful things are, how terrifying things can be unless you live it. So live it. And yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. That's what has been going on in my mind for the past 2 weeks. That's what I think about quite often. Not just when I'm alone, but in fact, I used to think about all these things only when I was alone. And that used to make me sad sometimes. But now I've learned to think about these things with people, with someone that I love, someone that I know cares for me, someone that I know is around. Anyone. That can be anyone. For a lot of people, it's pets. I know that. For a lot of people, it's their therapist. For a lot of people, it's their significant other. For a lot, it's their parent, friend, best friend, acquaintance, anybody. But just, you don't have to think alone. You don't have to live alone. You might want to, but you don't have to. And there's a difference. Anyway, that's about it for this episode. I just wanted to have a little bit of a chat. I really recommend that you check out Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine if you like this episode. I will put the link for the book in the description, and I will put a link to some of the articles I've written and that got published last week. And they're on mental health, and they're about mental health and my journey with mental health. And I hope you can check that out and see if you like what I've said. Yeah, if you have any other stories that you might want to share with me, if you have anything that you want to talk about, I'm here. Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I can be your best friend. I don't mind that. So yeah, hit me up, and I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great life. I hope you change. Thank you very much. Now I'm all alone in this